Hey everybody, welcome in. All right, what do you guys say we get started? So welcome Twitterverse. I'm Chelsea Bayarte here at NASA's Johnson Space Center, and I'm so excited to introduce you to NASA's newest flight directors. So why is this a big deal? Well, NASA has only had 101 flight directors in its history. So you might know the giants and the greats like Gene Kranz and Chris Kraft. Well, we just hired 7 more, and 6 of them are here with me today. Their names are Heidi Brewer, Ronak DeVay, Chris Dobbins, Nicole McElroy, Elias Murmo, and Deanna Trujillo. Garrett Hain was not able to join us today, but we've got 6 out of the 7, and they're not full-fledged flight directors yet. So they're brand new to their training, but these newbies are here to talk to you about their journey and answer your questions. So if you have a question for them, please tweet us using hashtag AskNASA or hit the request to speak button when we take questions at the end. So Deanna, why don't we start with you and maybe go around the room. Can you introduce yourselves?
Good morning. I'm happy to be here. My name is Diana Trujillo. I'm from Colombia, and I used to work at JPL with a Perseverance and Engineering mission, and I'm excited to be here to be working on the moon now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole McElroy. I'm originally from Highlands Ranch, Colorado, and I'm coming here from Virgin Orbit, where I was previously the launch director for our small satellite launch vehicle.
Hello, my name is Chris Dobbins. I'm from the Chicago area in Illinois, and I started here at NASA as an intern about 10 years ago, and I've spent recent years as a flight controller for the International Space Station and Boeing's CST-100 Starliner, working on life support and thermal systems.
Good morning, this is Elias Murmo. I'm originally from Naples, Florida, and I went to the University of Central Florida, and I've been out here at NASA for about 14 years, always working in flight operations. I've worked on the space station as well as the Artemis programs.
Good morning. My name's Ronak DeVay, and I also started as an intern about 10 years ago with Chris. My experience here has been in guidance, navigation, and control systems, along with propulsion systems on the International Space Station, the CST-100 Starliner, and the vehicles for the Artemis program, the SLS launch vehicle, and the Orion spacecraft.
Hello, everyone. I'm Heidi Brewer, and I'm from Marietta, Georgia. My history at NASA started about 15 years ago. I was a shuttle flight controller in the Instrumentation and Communications Group. After the shuttle retired, I transitioned to International Space Station program, working as a flight controller with our commercial partners for the cargo as well as crewed missions. I recently transitioned to the flight director offices along with my counterparts here, and we're really excited to answer your questions today.
Yes, I'm so excited to take the questions too. Okay, so we might be a little bit familiar with flight directors. We saw the Apollo 13 movie where we got to see Gene Kranz portrayed on our TVs. So can someone just tell us right off the bat, what the heck does a flight director do?
Hi, this is Chris. Ultimately, the flight director is responsible for leading the ground team in real time as they follow all of our crewed vehicle missions. That includes the space station, commercial crew program missions, Artemis, going back to the moon. Ultimately, the flight director just has one charge. It's to keep the crew safe, keep the vehicle safe, and then accomplish the mission given to them, whether it's getting a vehicle up to the space station or landing on the moon.
That's awesome. Thank you for that context before we start our awesome conversation. So we know what a flight director does, but let's get to know a little bit more about you guys. It sounds like this group truly comes from all over, both inside of NASA and outside companies. Heidi is one of those that comes from inside of NASA. So Heidi, you started your career in the space shuttle era. What have been some of the biggest changes that you've seen in human spaceflight?
When I started working at Johnson Space Center about 15 years ago, we had the singular focus of constructing the space station. So all of our shuttle missions that we were preparing for were bringing up various modules and equipment to prepare the space station to expand for upcoming science and research that would be performed. Once we transitioned to completing the space station and have started that science research that's taking place, we're also going into various other programs and looking towards the future, which includes our Artemis programs, which is going to have a gateway space station, as well as our human lander system that's going to be taking humans back to the moon. We also have been working with our commercial partners to start utilizing United States spacecraft to bring our NASA astronauts back to the space station. So it's been a combination of continuing the International Space Station research, as well as looking forward with our commercial partners and looking towards the moon.
That's awesome. So I know that also in your background, you helped support Axiom Mission 1, which was the first private astronaut mission to the International Space Station. What is the overarching goal for NASA being involved in the Commercial Crew Program, and how are you going to be involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. So NASA's goal ultimately is to advance human spaceflight for all of humanity, and our Commercial Crew Program and working also with the private astronauts is doing just that, because what we're doing is we're leveraging the strength, the ingenuity, the creativity, and the innovation that's happening within the aerospace industry, and pulling all of those skills and those people together towards ultimate goals. So first, we're doing that with the space station by doing these private astronaut missions, and then we're looking to Artemis by utilizing commercial partners to do some of our work to go back to the moon. And then we're looking, of course, forward outside of that, doing the moon missions, going out to Mars, and going beyond.
So while Heidi was at NASA during that Axiom Mission 1, Nicole has actually seen it from the other side. Nicole, you used to be at Virgin Orbit. So how does the process differ with Virgin Orbit versus NASA?
Sure. So at Virgin Orbit, I was working as the launch director. So I was really focused on getting everything ready for launch day, everything from the subsystems to the people, making sure that we were ready to go for launch. We were really focused on small satellite launch, as opposed to a lot more of the human spaceflight work that we'll be doing here in the flight director office. It is also really interesting in my history that I was very much focused at Virgin Orbit on developing that launch vehicle and got to see it pretty much from the ground up until our first and then successful launches. Whereas here we'll be jumping into the International Space Station work initially, supporting missions that are 24/7 and ongoing science exploration, and then expanding that out to Artemis missions that take people to the moon.
And so what skills did you acquire over at Virgin Orbit that you think would help you here at Mission Control?
So very similarly, when we walk into the Mission Control Center at Virgin Orbit or here at NASA, we're walking into a team of experts that understand how all of their subsystems work and can control everything individually. And really the role of the flight director and the launch director is to bring all of those systems together and have a successful mission. A lot of this that I've been able to pick up and are looking forward to applying are really about leading that team and being able to get the team to work well together, such that we can get what we need to get done.
So we've been talking about the International Space Station. We've been talking a little bit about Artemis missions. We've touched on that a little bit. And they're here at the right time for sure, because they'll be seeing Artemis missions to the moon. I actually have a special guest here with me from NASA Artemis's Twitter page. Hey, NASA Artemis.
Hey there. Yeah, a lot of you have already mentioned your excitement for our upcoming Artemis missions. My question for the flight directors is, what will your role be when NASA goes back to the moon?
Yeah, this is Elias again. I actually managed a group of flight controllers that were helping us get back to the moon. And now, obviously, as a flight director, we'll be helping manage those missions. So the ultimate goal, obviously, is to return people to the moon and making sure that we do that safely and bring them home safely. Later this year, we're going to actually fly the Artemis 1 mission, which will be an uncrewed test flight. And the prime objective of that really is going to be testing this brand new heat shield. We haven't really left low Earth orbit in almost 50 years. So it's going to be really exciting to be able to go to those, to that lunar distance and come back and make sure that we can safely protect our crews for future missions using that new heat shield. So as a flight director, again, we'll be managing all of the risk on those missions and making sure that they're executed flawlessly.
Awesome. Thanks so much for giving Artemis 1 a shout out, by the way. And also we should mention that our Artemis missions are not only working on getting us to the moon, but also preparing us for a human presence on Mars. Diana, you worked on Martian rovers. How are you feeling about going from Martian rovers to human missions to Mars?
I love your question because, yes, I think that, Mars to me made a difference in my life. Having worked on Mars operations on the surface and doing so much science and working with an international team of scientists and engineers made a huge difference, not only on what we did and how we discovered things on that planet, but also how we worked as a team. And learning all of that and now bringing it here at JSC, at Johnson Space Center, working with the team and realizing that we're going to do it on the moon, that we're going to go to the surface of the moon, that we're going to explore the surface of the moon with amazing people. And I am super excited to be here with a class of 6, even though we're all a total of 7, surrounded by amazing humans with extreme expertise on different areas. And I have no doubt that we're going to figure out how to do this. So I'm happy to be here and happy to move from Mars to the moon.
And hopefully back to Mars.
Awesome.
And hopefully back to Mars. I like that. Yes.
I love it. All right, well, thank you, NASA Artemis, for joining us. So those of you here in the audience, you just got a little taste of what it's like to hit the request to speak button and ask your question. So if you want to ask a question to the flight director, go ahead and hit that button and we'll get to you in just a little while. But meanwhile, Diana, since we're already talking to you, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now? What was your path?
Yeah, so clearly I'm having my dream job right now. But if I go back, my path really, it was, I went to school for aerospace engineering. And then I found myself actually following the track of NASA by going to the NASA Academy as my first internship. And then working really with the commercial partners on cargo resupply for the space station. Eventually then working at JPL on Curiosity, Perseverance, Ingenuity, understanding the value and the importance of science and what we do when we go out there and how do we sustain the ongoing exploration vision. And then now moving into Johnson, where I really didn't think I was going to get this job. This is such a competitive job. And like I said earlier, everybody in the office is just amazing human beings. And so I'm super happy to be here and to be working with such an amazing group. So yeah, so my track was sticking to engineering for me specifically, and then finding my way of working on specific jobs that allow me to make it to Johnson.
Awesome. So I think I do want to keep going down this path. Ronak and Chris, like you guys got your start as Pathways interns. So what advice do you give to current interns or future NASA interns who want to work here full time and do what you do?
Yeah, so this is Chris. I would say the key for anyone in high school or college age looking to work, in the space industry for NASA or any of our partners is to really pursue what you love and what you enjoy. It's really hard to be good at something when you can't find joy in doing it every day. A lot of us, I think, here consider our career is almost a hobby sometimes because we all really love what we do. And then the other piece of it too is once you find the things you enjoy, find the to add value or to contribute. There's always something on a team of people that's not being done. So find out what you're good at and then add value to a team by doing it. And so all of us have backgrounds in engineering, but there are a lot of ways to contribute to the larger NASA mission if math maybe isn't your thing or you don't enjoy it. Ronak, do you have anything to add?
That Chris made a great point. So I'd say first and foremost that the Pathways internship specifically and the internship programs that NASA provides, and I'm sure we could tweet out the links to those applications, provide a great opportunity for people to rotate into different positions as well. And that's a piece of advice I like to give to students is high school and college are really formative times where you are given the opportunity to have different experiences to learn. Be that working in an operations field and then an engineering field 6 months later, and then maybe going 6 months later and working for a program office where they're really looking at the strategy of how we fly a mission. For those not in technical fields, there's folks working in offices, in different legal offices, in offices like in public affairs, like you guys helping us today. There's significant opportunities for students to go try different things. From the STEAM perspective, that there's a huge importance there for this job and technical jobs in general, to learn how to learn and learn how to dissect complex problems in science, technology, engineering, and math. And those degrees, in my opinion, really help form those capabilities in you as a person. I think all of us at this table, or I know all of us at the table, have technical degrees, and we could rattle those off for you. But what you may not know is we also have different backgrounds or minors in liberal arts fields and music fields that really help make you a more holistic person. And what that does, it helps you in your problem solving and looking at problems differently and coming up with unique solutions. So I'd say the advice is definitely to do different things and to work on yourself as a person and not just have a singular focus, but absolutely keep that passion that Chris mentioned.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Chris and Ronak. I think that, understanding that your background, where you come from, what you learn, what you have experienced, combined with your education, gives you this additional perspective of how to solve the hard problems. Here at NASA, and what we're going to do with Artemis and what we're currently doing with the International Space Station requires a lot of creativity and a lot of different perspectives as to how to make an impossible problem possible. And I think that everybody here has a different background that at some point, if not every day, and I'll speak for myself, every day helps me figure out a problem and see the problem differently, or listen to my colleagues in a different way that I hadn't actually thought about before.
And did I hear correctly that someone studied music?
Yes, that's right. This is Heidi. So when I was at Georgia Tech, I also had a music minor. I took classes in the history of music, some electronic music composing, and played clarinet.
Wow, that's awesome. So I know we've been talking a little bit about some of the different fields that you can study, and we have kind of touched on a couple of those, but do you guys want to get into a little more just the different fields of study that students can take to get to where you are? Like, what are some of the backgrounds of your colleagues, for instance?
So for the flight director office, I think I'm one of the few right now that has a computer science degree. Obviously, there's a lot of mechanical engineering and aerospace, but we've had physics degrees as well. Obviously, a lot of them are going to be science, technology, engineering, and math. But certainly, the entire complement of flight directors, of which there's about 30, has a very diverse set of backgrounds, not only in their education, but also in their experiences, as you've kind of heard as we talked through a lot of folks' stories here today.
And I will add to that, I think, sometimes it's also about how your mind is trained. So if you're an engineer, if you're a scientist, if you're a physics major, if you're a mathematician, I think that we need all those types of different perspectives of learning. And when it comes down to execution, if you have gotten the right training for execution, to sit as a controller, to sit as a flight director, your background in school certainly help you get there. But then at some point, it's also up to you and how you have actually trained for that job. So if you're a physics major, even if you're not an aerospace engineer like I am, that's still something that we certainly value. Computer science, we're looking at the future and how we're going to do things with more autonomy and how computers are going to help us figure things out, right? So we're constantly looking at the cutting edge of how we will do missions. So all of these STEM majors certainly can contribute to it.
So I know that it must be so exciting to become NASA flight directors, and just congratulations. I'm sure getting that call was an incredible moment. Can you each walk me through what it was like when you got that call?
Sure, I think we can go around it and kind of give you the quick story. So this is Ronak. I was actually in the Mission Control Center working the wet dress rehearsal for Artemis 1 when I got 2 or 3 FaceTime calls from numbers that I didn't recognize, so I hung up on them. And I was grabbing my bag and leaving for the day when I finally got a text from the chief of the flight director office that said, "Hey, this is Holly. Can you please pick up the phone?" So I snuck into the break room and picked up the FaceTime when they let me know. And then they must have recognized the background because they asked me where I was. And they were like, "Oh, you should probably get somewhere quiet." So I was able to run out to my car and give them a call back and have the rest of the conversation.
my story is somewhat similar. This is Heidi. I did not recognize the numbers. I hung up on my future bosses. I received a text and then gave them a call. And it actually was somewhat of an unfortunate weekend because the day before I had broken my elbow riding my bicycle. So at least I got some great news on the career front, and that put me in a great mood. And I'm super excited to be doing this job. So I'm looking forward to everything that we'll be able to do.
I'm glad your day finished well then. This is Diana. I'm a mom of two. I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I was actually at the grocery store. So I'm unpacking all the groceries out of my car when I got the phone call, which clearly I also declined, just like Ronak did. But eventually I realized that it was an area code from Texas, and that was the call that I needed to take. So I was very excited.
It's funny. This is Nicole. I was actually home visiting my family in Colorado, so was excited to step away and be able to take a FaceTime call with some future bosses, and then be able to share the news within the close bit of being able to make sure that everybody was excited and looking forward to what was coming up.
This is Chris. Like Deanna, I have two kids, 4-year-old and 18-month-old, and I was out in the yard doing some chores, yard work. When I got the call, and I took the call and had to come inside and pause what I was doing to tell my wife. And the part that sticks out to me is my daughter was very confused about why I stopped the yard work in the middle of it. She had a lot of questions about what was so important that I had to stop doing my job out in the yard.
Yeah, so one note on all this, we all got called on a Sunday. I think that we would usually expect a phone call randomly during the business week when they're calling from the office. So like everyone else, I was in a coffee shop and randomly got some texts that I didn't recognize and kind of hung up on them, but then decided to finally pick up. And so I found out randomly in some Colorado coffee shop parking lot, and they were having a grand old time of, I think, teasing all of us, calling us on a Sunday. So. The chief of the flight director office certainly had a sense of humor.
These have been some hilarious stories. I can't believe they just called you guys up on a Sunday with pretty much a cold call FaceTime call. That is hilarious. So what we're going to do now is switch over to some Ask NASA questions. So for those of you here in the spaces with us, I'm curious, if you're curious and you have a question for our flight directors, please press the request to speak button. And in the meantime, while you guys are getting those mute, unmute buttons ready, I'm going to take a text question that we got here from Ask NASA, excuse me. Their username might be Tony RTX or hashtag joyful be the journey, wants to know, why are there 7 of you? Like, what is there going to be different projects that you guys are all going to be working on? Like, why are there 7?
Yeah, this is Elias again. So they had a class of 7 new flight directors, adding to, again, about 25 already in the office. So we've had the International Space Station that's had a continuous human presence on it since the late 90s, going on over 20 years now. And so obviously we always need to support our crews in space, which is a 365, 24/7 operation. So a lot of us are going to go into that training and certification program first so that we can really just be able to support the International Space Station. This enables a lot of the other flight directors to go work on the Artemis missions that we've talked about, as well, and the commercial crew programs. So there's a lot of stuff obviously going on with NASA and human spaceflight right now, but our first jobs will all be the International Space Station.
Yeah, and I will add for Joyful Be the Journey that the fact that, this is a really exciting time right now for space. There's so much going on. We just talked about the James Webb Telescope and all the amazing pictures that just came back. And just looking at those pictures for me personally makes me think about how much we have to do, how much we get to, how much is out there that we have to learn about, that we don't understand yet, and how much we can contribute with programs like the International Space Station and also Commercial Crew and also Artemis, and when we go back to Mars again. And so I think that this is exciting times. We certainly have a group of 7, like you said earlier, that joins a big office that has different strategic jobs to contribute to all of this vision that NASA has. So a lot to do, but a lot of exciting stuff to do.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to take some questions from the audience here. I just added Martin. Please correct me on that pronunciation there. If you want to go ahead and unmute, go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you so much for giving the mic. Thank you, NASA, for the recent exploration, and that was really great. The question in my mind is that I know that NASA is exploring the moon and other planets around, and what gonna be for the countries that they are still doesn't have any kind of facility for accessing internet or other things. So, is there anything that NASA kind of provide or other companies they are doing? And that was my question. Thanks.
So I think at a high level, what we can say is that NASA does a lot in terms of providing benefits to Earth, and in that we're generating technologies to provide satellite services, and there's a lot of things we're learning, and we provide that information to the world. As a part of that, in the Artemis program, we're working with international partners through what we're calling the Artemis Accords, and that is providing partnerships with all countries to work with us in those programs.
Yeah, and the Artemis Accords now have about 15 or 20 different countries, and a big part of that is really going back to the moon, not as just America, but really as the world, and to really find peaceful uses for outer space, right? In terms of the research that we're doing and really the exploration that we're doing, which is really foundational to what we do here at NASA.
Exactly. And I will add that the vision and the intent really is that when we go out there to the universe and we explore other planets, other moons, other areas that we don't know about, we really go out there as planet Earth. And so the fact that we are all partnering with different countries, with different companies, leveraging everybody's expertise puts us in a position where we can all learn and understand.
That's a beautiful answer. Thank you so much, Martin, for your question. I'm going to take one now that we got submitted at #AskNASA. And once again, if you guys don't want to speak to the flight directors, but you want to type in your question, submit it that way, you're welcome to use #AskNASA. Mark, Ethereal Mark, has a bunch of questions for us, but I think in the interest of time, I will throw out one. What are NASA's plans for a station around the moon? And I guess I'll throw in, like, what's you guys' role in that? How are you guys going to play a part?
Yeah, great question. So as a part of the Artemis program, we're working on the Gateway space station, which will be around the moon. There's elements of that space station that are starting to get fabricated now, and again, that's going to provide us a platform to learn more about living in space now, not just in low Earth orbit like we're doing with the International Space Station, but further away from Earth around the moon. That allows us also easy access to go down to the surface and provide not just supplies to astronauts who may already be on the surface, but to go do sortie type missions where we can go collect materials, come back to the Gateway station, and that provides you a staging area to come back to Earth.
And just to add to that too, one of the cool things about Gateway is it really allows us to go back to the moon in the same spot. So we'll always be able to go to the South Pole. If you remember back with Apollo, it was really kind of random almost of the spaces that we landed on, depending on what day we could launch, which was all very dependent on weather for anyone that follows launching spacecraft. So Artemis is going to be about always going to the South Pole. So then we can pre-stage habitats or science experiments to really maximize the science and exploration of the polar regions of the moon, which is also where there could be ice, where you could extract that and then kind of have more of a permanent settlement on the moon, which is really, the next step to going to Mars and living there in perpetuity.
And this is Diana. I completely agree with all the answers that we just gave you with respect to Gateway. And I think that if we take a step back, you're also thinking about, what is the infrastructure that we need for a long-term exploration of the universe, right? And so when we think about Gateway, when we think about what we're going to do on the surface of Mars, when we think about Mars itself and the surface of the moon, then you start realizing that we need to set up specific assets in specific locations so that we can continue to build on the program that is ongoing, so that we can be on the moon in a sustainable way and then look outward to the rest of the solar system and beyond.
So we've got another speaker in the queue who wants to ask a question. Their display or their username is Positive. Their display name is Kimbula, I think. Again, you can correct me on the pronunciation, please. Do you want to go ahead and push unmute and ask your question? Positive or Kimbula, you are still on mute. If you wanted to ask your question, go ahead and push the unmute button in the lower left-hand corner of your screen and go ahead and ask a question to our flight directors.
Hello, thank you for having me. I wanted to ask, when will the Project Artemis be implemented in the moon?
All right,
So,
thank you for your question on when we're going to implement Artemis onto the moon.
Yeah, so this is Chris. Later this year, we'll be doing a test flight of many of the spacecraft components that we need to get back to the moon. Like Elias was talking about from the beginning of our session, if you remember, we'll be taking the Orion spacecraft and the Space Launch System rocket out around the moon without any people on it, and that's really just to shake down the entire spacecraft and get a sense for how it performs and what changes we might need to make going forward. The future missions with people hopefully will happen in the next several years, and hopefully by within the next few years we'll have humans back on the surface of the moon. But of course, all that's being worked in. A lot of it's dependent upon how successful this test flight of Artemis 1 is going to be.
Perfect. Thanks for your question. I know we've got the NASA Artemis speaker on here. I'm so excited to have you. And we're excited for these Artemis missions, and it sounds like our NASA flight directors are too. But before we get to our Artemis missions, I think you guys are going to be using the International Space Station for a lot of your training, right? Like, what is your training going to be like?
Our training is multifaceted. We do a series of self-studies and classes looking at various documents and diagrams. At our desks, there'll be a lot of conversations with flight directors that have worked on console and just hearing stories and learning about their experiences. And then there's a lot of hands-on classes too. So here at Johnson Space Center in the mock-up facility that we call Building 9, is a mock-up of the International Space Station with the various modules, where we will be taking subsystem classes that teach us about the electrical systems and the power and the life support systems and emergency response, and going through some of the classes that the astronauts take as well. So we are familiar with the systems in a similar way that they are. So once we've gone through and gotten a background on those technical materials, then they'll put us into the mission control room, where we'll be doing simulations of International Space Station days on console. So things like extravehicular activities and preparing for those, or doing a docking of a vehicle, or going and just having a regular day on the space station, which would include following the crew performing maintenance activities or doing various science activities, and then having those systems on space station malfunction where we have to respond. And so then we'll be working with our teams in the mission control room to respond to those failures and still try to do it safely, maintaining the crew's safety, trying to do what we can with our mission systems so that our vehicle is still in good shape, and then also executing our mission objectives as possible. So it's a combination of self-study and hands-on classes, and then going into the simulations, which will ultimately prepare us for working real time.
And as someone that's coming from outside of NASA, I'm really excited to see how thorough the training program is, both from the technical understanding the International Space Station and the systems, and also the more soft skills of how we work together as a team and how the control room, and all of the different flight controllers and flight directors come together to determine what needs to get done and prioritize accordingly, and do what Heidi said to make the mission happen.
Yeah, and this is Diana. I will say it is humbling to be here and be receiving this training, to be sitting down and listening to one of the world's experts at something that is on space. And I think that it is humbling, and also I feel very grateful to be receiving a class from somebody that just maybe taught maybe 2 weeks ago an astronaut, and now I'm getting the same class to understand how things work in the International Space Station. So I am very happy to be here and to be receiving classes and understanding the vehicle really from the experts.
So you guys have talked about a little bit about your training. As a reminder, these are not full-fledged flight directors yet, but they are going to be. Like I said, NASA's had 101 flight directors, and these guys are going to bring us up to 108 once that's all said and done. So I just wanted to ask you guys real quick, what happened at the end of your training? Did I hear something about call signs?
Yeah, so at the end of your training, your first official shift on console, when they hand you the keys and say, hey, take care of the crew in the vehicle, we'll see you in 9 hours when your shift is over. The tradition is that you pick a call sign for your team. And this goes back to the days of Craft and Cranes that you mentioned, where your team was your team. So you had the white team, the black team, the red team, the blue team, and the flight director went by that moniker as red flight, white flight, blue flight. Expanded past colors to constellations, ideals, and the last few have included animals as well. So it is something that I'm sure all of us are looking forward to, and hopefully we will get there soon.
Yeah, and I will add to your question. I really like it because really what it boils down to me, and at least personally, is the meaning of it. When we stand up when we set a foot on mission control, and we know we're about to sit on that chair as a flight director, where we're going to lead a team to do something that maybe is routine, but maybe not. Maybe something we haven't done before. It is a different crew. Maybe it's the same crew. Maybe it's the same controllers. When you think about the meaning of what that is for each one of us, it's a lot of responsibility, but it's also something that comes in with a lot of passion and care for what we do. Chris talked earlier about bringing value and purpose to what you do and having joy to your day-to-day work or school. And I think that truly for all of us 6 here, including the 7 that is not here, it is truly joyful to stand up or walk into mission control and realize that we're going to make a difference, even if it doesn't look like sometimes, or maybe if it does, but it's just amazing to be there.
It is so just awesome hearing the energy that you guys have for this brand new job that you've been bestowed. That has to be so exciting. So going back to our question a little bit, we have a hashtag Ask NASA questions on why do the new flight directors have call signs? Or I guess I should clarify, they will be given call signs once they graduate. So first of all, why do we use that? And I don't want any spoilers here, but have you guys already thought about what you might want it to be?
So the reason we have call signs is it's ultimately a really good team building exercise. It's an opportunity to kind of share your values and what's important to you with the rest of your team. That's what a lot of the recent flight directors have done is picked something that really signified what they their team to stand for, and it's a good way to reflect that to others in a simple name or phrase. As far as spoilers, I don't know about my friends here, but I refused to think about that until I got the job, and so now I'm completely stumped. So I'll take ideas too if anyone's got some.
Oh, I thought about it before I applied, so.
I couldn't have the bad juju.
So thinking of like the 2021 class of flight directors that we had, I know we had like Adagio flight as some examples for our listeners here. it like referred to the cadence that he worked at, like slow tempo building with momentums. Like that's how they work in mission control, is carefully but with purpose. And we had another that was Mosaic Flight, who was just, this is how we all work together, little pieces of one whole. That's what mission control is. So these are the kinds of names this class is going to have to live up to. I'll take one more from #AskNASA. What do you feel, and this is to anybody, is the most important aspect of NASA's future for the benefit of humankind?
Right?
Yeah, this is Diana. I think that's a very important question, really. And why we stand here today, in really every day that we come to work, is to try to figure out the answer to how we can contribute to humanity. There's different ways that we can contribute. NASA explores different areas. We're talking about, cloud. We're talking about understanding Earth, understanding what's happening in specific regions of Earth, what's happening on low Earth orbit, what's happening on the moon, what's happening on Mars, missions that go out through the solar system and beyond the solar system. So really, I think that NASA in general, and all of us as a team, as a big NASA team, try to understand not only where is our place in the universe, what is out there in the universe, how can we contribute to the universe and help things out here at home as well.
Thanks, Diana, for taking that one. I know it's such a big question to think about, but it's stuff that NASA's thinking about all the time, is how is this going to benefit humanity? How can we explore further? Everything like that. So our next question is going to come from our audience here. Their name is Taimi. Taimi, if you are here and want to unmute, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, this is Taimi from Finland. I hope you hear me. Thank you for having me. My question is, does any of the new flight directors has cooperation experience with the European Flight Agency, especially for the Artemis mission?
So this is Elias. Obviously, with the International Space Station, I think everyone that was an International Space Station flight controller worked a lot with the European Space Agency. I had counterparts that we would work with daily as we worked through all the science that we're doing up on board the space station. The Columbus module houses a lot of our human research experimentation equipment that the astronauts are using really every single day. So we worked a lot with them. In my previous job, I was also a manager of flight controllers for the Artemis program. And obviously we have the ESA service module, again, the European Space Agency service module that has all of the propulsion and power generation that's really going to make the Orion capsule work for all of the Artemis missions, right? So again, Artemis 1 coming up in a couple of months. We'll have that ESA module attached, and it'll be doing all of our burns and doing all the power generation. So we have a tight relationship with ESA, and obviously it goes back to the beginning of space station, and really even before that when we did space shuttle missions jointly with ESA.
Thank you for your question. So that just about wraps up all of the time that we have here today. I so enjoyed hearing all of your questions. Sounds like from around the world. Hello, Finland. So again, these flight directors, their names are Heidi Brewer, Ronak Deve, Chris Dobbins, Nicole McElroy, Elias Murmo, Diana Trujillo, and of course, not here with us today is Garrett Hain, but we'll have opportunities to connect with them. They're not full-fledged flight directors yet, but they're going to be, so follow along with their mission with @NASA Flight Director. They're going to be in total control of those accounts, and they're going to be sharing their journey along the way. So go ahead and give them a follow, and we'll also keep up with what they're going to be up to here at NASA on the @NASA Johnson page. So thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.